So I will call this meeting to order at 6:01. This is the appointment committee. We've got Erica Flood and JP Kwasinski both present. Also the city clerk, Barb LaBumbar, and the personnel director for the city, Emily Russo, and one of the appointees, Austin Sanders. So does anyone want to speak to anything that's not on the agenda? Okay. Okay. Oh, I didn't approve. I skipped it. Approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from January 13th. Did you get a chance to look at those, JP?
I'm good with them.
I'm good with them too. So
I move to approve the minutes from January 13th.
I second that. All in favor? I need JP.
Aye.
Erica? Aye. Aye. Okay, so moved. The minutes are accepted into the record. So tonight we have 3 mayoral appointments before us. Austin Sanders to the planning board, Kathy Harrison and Jackie Barroso Pereira. We're lucky to have Austin here tonight. And I was saying, just so you know, in the last correspondence I sent to all the appointees, I said we welcome them to attend because would like to get to know and connect with the people volunteering in the city, but that it shouldn't affect whether or not they're appointed. They don't have to come, but we would welcome the opportunity to meet them. So Austin's here. Does anyone have anything they want to? Do you want to just? I know you've been on the planning board, right? An auxiliary member. Maybe just talk a little bit about. You just introduce yourself and.
Sure. Austin Sanders. Resident on Parsons Street, and I've been an associate member, and that's given me a chance to familiarize with the process of the planning board. And I think I only attended 1 or 2 meetings that weren't on Zoom before Zoom was a thing. And I think I met JP when I met with the appointment committee to be an associate member.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And it's almost been a whole year.
Yeah,
wow.
that would be about it.
Just about right. And it's great to see you again. So thanks so much for attending.
Yeah,
thank you.
Certainly.
I was going to ask a question when the chair allows it.
Sure.
How is the experience now that you've gone from not being a member to being a member of the planning board, having some exciting meetings, and
right.
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, I do get a sense that the meeting format probably is a little bit different in the ability of the public to engage with the meetings. So that's certainly something that the board continues to be trying to address, the Zoom aspect of it. Certainly, to me as an associate member, it felt that way, and I think the board handled it as best they could. And I don't know if meeting length has changed. It seems similar, but I could be wrong. It's unfortunate to not be in the room when projects are reviewed, and sometimes it probably makes things a little bit more difficult, allowing people to speak, and especially if people have difficulty with the technology. So I think the board does a good job of addressing that. Otherwise, the summer was particularly busy with meetings. Almost every week, but certainly there was a slow period at the beginning of COVID.
Right.
Leading up to a very busy summer of meetings.
Yes, you had some exciting projects before you, and do you feel that the public has had an opportunity to engage enough to be able to be a process whereby you feel everyone is heard?
I think so. With recent projects, without naming them, I think that the public was heard on a number of them. Yeah. I think a lot of city employees, in addition to the board, have stepped up to hear input of residents and businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for addressing the questions.
Yeah, certainly.
Erica, did you want to say anything?
No, it's nice to meet you, Austin. I'm in the street. Look forward, this is nice to interact, and thank you for coming tonight and answering questions for us. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks for.
Just so you guys know, I'm working on 2 monitors, so if you see me looking to the left, it's because I'm making notes, and you guys are on the right. So just
You're not playing Minecraft? Just kidding. Okay, well, since Austin's here right now, do we want to entertain a motion, JP?
I would like to move to reappoint Austin Sanders to the planning board with a term expiration December 31, 2022.
I'll second
I
that.
second that. Erica second. Okay. All in favor, JP?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
And aye. So moved. We will be recommending your appointment as a full member to the planning board, to the full council. That'll be in our next meeting on February 3rd. Is that right? February 3rd? Okay, cool. Thank you. You're welcome to stay and hang out. You're welcome to Zoom off, whatever you want to do.
All right. I think I'll Zoom off. I just wanted to make sure you did have my updated contact information I sent. I apologize for the confusion.
Oh, don't worry. I got it. Barb, just so you know, as I reach out to candidates and I get new contact information, I'm updating it and I'll share it all back with you.
Okay.
Yeah, Barb manages a list, so I'm just trying to update it as I find it needs updated.
Yeah, I haven't
Cool.
really touched it in a while, so more
I've been
the better.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Thank you so much, Austin. It was very nice to meet you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Good to see you again. Glad you're coming back.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next appointment we have is Kathy Harrison. She said she was going to stop in. She's not here, but I had a nice talk with her. I wanted to get my notes from that conversation. She did a lot of work on city committees in Haydenville, where she moved from, and she was on the planning board there, and then she wanted to be on their school reuse committee, but she moved before that. She's an author, an educator about foster care families. She's very interested in the strong town movement and livable small cities. She really is interested in joining the reuse committee when that exists, and she sees work on the affordable and fair housing as dovetailing with some of the mission of the school reuse in terms of affordability. She said she's really paid attention to the Easthampton forums, and she can see that the tax burden is a real concern of our residents, especially some of our older residents who have fixed incomes. And so she'd really like to lend her thought and energy to helping it be affordable for all who live here. So it was very nice to talk to her. So I want to make a motion for that one.
I would move to approve Kathy Harrison for the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership.
Okay, cool. To recommend.
Recommend, yep, sorry.
All in favor? JP?
Aye.
Me, aye. Okay, so moved that we are going to recommend Kathy Harrison to join the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership. And then we all know Jackie Brousseau-Pereira. She's already on the Affordable Care Housing Partnership, and now she's interested in helping the city. She thinks the city does an amazing job with elections, Barb LeBombard, and she would like to be honored to be part of the process. So she wants to get more involved in Easthampton. And so any further discussion about
Can I just hop in here for a second? That's
Sure.
why I was here. I just wanted to say that I strongly support her appointment. I've known Jackie for a long time, and the Board of Registrars is a little different in that we have to appoint, there's a party representation on the board. So our Barbara Craig was our outgoing member. She was on the committee for a long time. She's a Democrat. Before her was her mother, Stacia Sharon. And so that followed that family. But so I was looking for a Democrat. I did reach out to the Democratic Town Committee, figuring that was a good place to start. And I know Jackie and one other person were interested. I don't know if the other person applied, but I certainly support Jackie. The Board of Registrars is not a super active committee. I don't know if she totally understands. The most important part for me is that she has to be willing to sign her name so I can put it on a signature stamp. But they also help with last day to register to vote. And at the polls, I can't have them work at the polls, but I have used the registrars to help with, voter helping out in the hallway, directing people to the correct precincts, things like that. So the main reason really for a Board of Registrars is if there's ever a recount, they become the judges. So that's why I can't have a member of the Board of Registrars do anything really directly at the polling place, because if it ever came down to a recount, they have to be neutral judges. So I just started my 39th year, and I've never had a recount. So let's give it 4 more years. I hope I don't see one, but if we did have one, it's the Board of Registrars who serve as judges.
If it didn't happen this year, probably won't happen.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to come and say that I think she'll be a great addition, and I strongly support her appointment.
JP?
Barb, thank you for being here. It's always great to have you. And we learned so much. I was going to ask if you could share with us a couple of questions about the Board of Registrar Voters. How many people are there? I know you said they're the judges.
Yep.
Is it a 3 or 5 member board, or how many people?
Right. So there's three members. Right now we have 2 Republicans. Should be a Democrat. I'm the clerk to the Board of Registrars, so I kind of count. I'm not in a party, but I have a feeling I'm going to go back to a certain party. So then it'll be 2 and 2. But yeah, they are paid a small stipend. They get I think $125 a year. So if I need them, I can just call them, and I don't have to worry about paying them because we're already paying them.
And a follow-up question was if they're, I'm going to knock on some wood, 39 years without any retirement, I'm not going to say the word, but if there ever was one after an election, if it were contested, is it solely the Board of Registrars with 3 individuals, or are other people been invited to observe or do process and answer questions and resolve issues?
So from what I understand, saying that I've never had one, is that on a recount, you have teams of people counting the ballots. And, in most cases, it's clear what the voter means. But if there ever came a point where there was a question of voter intent, then that ballot would go over to the table with the Board of Registrars, and they would be the one to determine that particular ballot, how it would go. So yeah, no, they would be the judges for it, but the counting would be done by other people. And of course, the people who wanted the recount and the representatives could watch, but the ultimate decision, if there was any ballots that, wasn't really clear, there was some question about voter intent, it's the Board of Registrars who make that decision.
Hanging chads just comes to mind.
Now, I have to say that in some towns, and smaller towns especially, they do use the Board of Registrars for, a lot more things like census help and opening envelopes, but we've never really felt the need to do that. I did call upon the Board of Registrars to help me count the overseas ballots at the November election. I used one of the members of the Board of Registrars, but I always reach out to them for the last day to register to vote to do the last couple hours where we have to be in the office and nobody comes in. So,
Right.
so it's really not really active, but I mean, there's nothing saying that we couldn't do voter registration drives like we, used to. So if she wanted to set up something, we used to always have a table at the Fall Festival. We'd register people to vote, but now it's so easy to register that we haven't really done that in a long time.
That's great. Thank you, Barb.
Yeah, thank you, Barb. That helps. I didn't really know exactly what they did either.
Yeah.
So I'm glad she stepped up.
Yeah, I think she'll be great.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion if we're ready.
Oh, I will move to
Recommend.
go. Yep, I will move to recommend Jackie Brusso Pereira to the Board of Registrars of Voters.
Second.
Uh,
All in favor? JP?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Me? And Z? Aye. Okay.
And
We'll be
that term of
Oh,
expires
sorry.
December 31, 2023. Just for the
Oh,
record.
thank you, JP.
Yes,
With
for the
term
record.
ending.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. 2020. Yeah, they all had different term endings. So,
Right.
Great.
All right.
You guys have a good meeting. Hope you don't get bombed like the finance meeting did last night.
I heard that was exciting.
Oof, it wasn't.
No, not in a good way.
Not in a good way. All
in a
right.
good
Thank
way,
you, Barb.
no.
Okay.
Take
see you
care,
later.
Barb. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. So we get to move on to our next agenda item, which is the process. And did you guys get Owen's email?
I did not see it.
Okay, I'll share my screen. We had so much paper coming in for this meeting that I collated it into one long thing.
Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that. That was really helpful because that coming in a little later in the day and I was in the middle of stuff, put it right front and center for me to look at quickly.
And you can add it to the minutes too for the public because we're
for sure.
talking about it. So I'll share my screen. I'll share what he said first, and then why I invited Emily here tonight was because we were talking about, we want to be able to have, the consensus is we pretty much want to be able to have free and open questioning, but I thought Emily as a personnel director could maybe help us provide some guidelines to that or understanding of keeping within the legal and fair ramifications. So maybe we can come, I think, let me pull up Owen's, hold on, share screen. Okay, oh my God, my screen is crazy. Okay, this is the wrong. His is at the bottom, I think. So can you see that well? Do you want me to, can you read it on your own or do you want me to read it or?
I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing on my Zoom account to be able to see the screen. So
It's not that long, so I can read it.
I can look up the letter itself in the emails.
Okay, but I'll just, because I think it's really relevant to our conversation here.
Sure.
So let me, Owen
It's short
said-
enough. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
it's short enough. It might be good to just read it into the record.
Yeah, I'll just read into the record. Members of the property committee, I cannot attend tonight's meeting, but I wanted to provide my input. I agree the guidelines may be established for vetting and reviewing appointees. I believe that the specific setting questions is overly restrictive and we should have freedom within reasonable framework to interview prospective appointees. Whether this is a city council rule or ordinance under chapter 2 of our ordinance, possibly article 3, which discusses committees. So he included some sample codes of ethics and conducts from other cities.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put that in our packet. You can look at that later, but I did. Here's his appointment process that he recommends. Number 1, referrals to the appointment committee shall include an application form, letter of intent, and resume CV. If the applicant is unable to provide any of these materials, a written or verbal communication to the chair of the committee is required to request an exemption. Number 2, the appointment process shall include questions and queries relevant to the committee position, the applicant's fitness and qualifications for the position, and any and all publicly relevant records of the applicant's engagement with the city and community, to include spoken, written statements, including social media posts. 3, questions to the applicant shall not be allowed that discriminate based on gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religion, age, or disability. Conduct in the process of deliberating appointees shall be City Council Rule 19, Code of Ethics. Number 4, all applicants affirmed by the City Council shall be required to sign a Code of Conduct established by the City Council. So, since we have Emily here tonight, I really want to focus on guidelines around questions. Do you have anything before to lay out there in front of us that what would be included in guidelines or anything that's okay? Thanks.
Absolutely. No, we can talk about it. One thing I was going to bring up was kind of discussed in 3 is just kind of following those basic guidelines of just not asking any questions that would give us any cause to discriminate, such as gender, sexual orientation, anything like that. We really shouldn't be asking about conflicts if they're going to be, something with children, like, oh, do you have kids? Things like that. Though it's really important to just kind of be aware of the way you're asking questions. And one thing, a lot of you were with us last night, but just kind of, it's really important to be asking the same question to all candidates because it gives them all the same opportunity to give a response that we might want or not want. If we're more familiar with one candidate and we're asking them questions because we know that they know a little bit more about something, it's giving them an unfair advantage. So it's just really important to stay neutral with our questions, and you can ask follow-up questions as long as they're relevant to the initial question.
So does that apply to our context where it's usually not a competitive process? It's usually, it's usually one person and we're deciding if that one person.
That should be fine. If you want to ask more in-depth questions because you know their history, that's fine if it's only one person. But if you do have multiple people applying for something, then I would definitely recommend sticking to that, asking them the same question.
Fine.
Yeah,
sure. Go ahead. Just speak freely, JP.
Okay. Typically, the mayor does what she does and sends over a name, and now that we've formalized the process in the last couple of years, we do get usually a resume or a letter of intent and a filled out application. But we really don't typically on most appointments do lots of vetting because somebody is going to be on a board, and we're just darn glad that somebody volunteered to be able to serve the city. And I guess my question is are you familiar with the mayor's vetting process in terms of what she does before she makes an appointment?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically we'll have any applicant for a position within the city submit to the personnel department. So they would submit their application, their resume. Depending on the position, we might require a little bit further. If it's a department head, we're going to want a letter of intent. We're going to want the resume, everything. We're really going to be reaching into those references. For more, support staff, we might not go as in-depth and as detailed, but usually what we'll do then is kind of create a panel for interviewing. So we might have 3 people who are going to be interviewing this candidate. Usually it'll be myself for personnel as a representative, right, the department head, whoever is, reaching over that department, and then maybe one other person who could be an unbiased opinion. We're going to go through, depending on how many applicants we have. We may narrow it down to 1 or 2 candidates and kind of present those forth. Or if we really found someone off the bat that we were like, this is it, we'll present it to the mayor and, kind of see where she is with that. And then usually she'll review what we present to her and make her decision based off of that.
And that covers hiring people who will be paid for regular positions with the city I was thinking more in terms of volunteering for boards and familiar with that process, where the mayor has full authority to appoint anyone.
Yeah.
Or not.
Right? Appoint anyone,
Yeah.
and that seems to be what the charter offers. Is the mayor makes an appointment. There really isn't a lot of discussion about who or how or what that appointment. So I was wondering if you or anyone else in the city or the mayor's office did any special interviewing, any special review, any investigation of the social media accounts of the person, whatever. Just so we become more familiar with maybe what's already being done and we wouldn't be duplicating anything in the process. Or maybe we want to, I don't know, but it'd be helpful to learn more.
And to be completely candid, I have not had much involvement with any of those appointments. I'm assuming just go directly through the mayor's office.
JP, I do have a meeting set. I'm meeting with Lindsay and the mayor on Tuesday to talk more about that topic that you asked. And she supplied me, Lindsay did, it's in the packet I sent you, and I'll show you on the screen, all the documents that they send them once their application, like before the directions on how to apply, once their application's been received, once they've been recommended, if they haven't been recommended, if they've been selected. So
that's great.
So I'll follow up on those questions.
So we'll get some more information there.
Yeah, I'm wondering, that's something that might satisfy, like, I like the idea of being like having fixed questions, but then be able to follow up questions. So at least you know which categories of questioning you're asking. Do you know what I mean? Like, we asked a question about community engagement. We could then follow up with specific social media questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as long as it's relevant to the question, then absolutely you can follow up with, like, if you knew that they were involved in something, they mentioned, they were involved in something, you can definitely follow up on that. Or you had seen something on their account or something like that. There's no problem with following up questions. It's just that initial, like, you just don't want to give them that initial advantage or disadvantage.
Right. Do you see the opening, Erica and JP, with that? Or Omar, you're here too, you're welcome to speak up. With like because we were talking about we possibly sending them questions, these are the questions we're going to ask, and we can ask any follow-up questions. Would that satisfy you, like you're feeling free to ask questions? If we had them broad enough that would fall under one of those 4 categories, just so I'm just asking.
What are I don't know if I'm following completely. What are the categories?
Well, we would create those.
Oh, okay. That's what you're asking. Yeah.
See if we had if we had 3 questions or 4 questions, and one was like about the way they communicate with the community, we could ask follow-up questions about social media, their social, you know what I'm saying? Because legally when we do the candidates, that's just a way to create continuity. Right. Even with Austin tonight, like, it was great asking him questions, and I do this too. Like, I call people, and some people I know, so I get really chummy with them right away, which is fine. But it's like, if people are entering into the process that don't already have friends here, right, it'd be nice to know they're entering and getting the same questions, though we're free to ask any follow-up questions we want. Does that make sense to you guys? Or? Omar, do you have any thoughts? I know you have thoughts. He's here, but...
Yes, I'm here. The thing is, Cindy is in another meeting, so that's why I'm trying to be quiet.
Oh, okay.
I like the idea of doing that, but I guess I have to agree 100%. I have to see the questions first.
Well, we would create those.
I know. As soon as you create it and take a view of it, probably I will agree with it. But again, I have to see it first. But I like the idea. It's like, yes, if we can do following questions, especially about that kind of stuff, like social media, I agree. We shouldn't ask some personal stuff. That's obvious. We shouldn't ask that. But definitely, we should be allowed to do following questions.
Yeah. And Lindsay, I like the way you worded that, just saying how like, you know someone and then you get chummy with them on the phone, because it's like, well, you kind of already know how they are, so you know how to ask questions. You're like, oh, tell me a little bit more about this. But it's nice because it creates a platform for conversation for the people who you don't know. If you have those questions, you can kind of build that off of that. So yeah, I mean, if you do have your base questions and then like, once they start speaking, and I don't know, I think it gives you a lot of room to ask those follow-up questions without limiting yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we hit the buck, if our 3 or 4 questions are broad enough that like experience, the way they communicate with the community, I don't know it could just be those. I don't know what other domains you see. Do you have enough?
Maybe interest. Like I'm just thinking of, what.
Yeah, interest.
Yeah. Interest, experience, and I'm almost thinking of. I don't know if it's public engagement or public speaking. Just I'm trying to think of how to bring up how do you interact, or how do you feel about communicating with larger numbers of people, versus.
I like the public engagement
versus large groups. How do you do that?
Social media could definitely fall under public engagement.
Engagement is a tricky thing too. I mean, it's hard to reach large numbers of people. So if depending on what committee you're applying for, there may be more of a need to disseminate information depending on which committee, and getting at what some people think is a good way to do that. I mean, that's a great conversation to have. So.
Because if they were broad enough that we could ask follow-up questions that were specific to that committee, like.
Right.
If we think about tonight with planning, just like, interests, right? That was so just if you think about the information we gleaned from the candidates that we had tonight, that was helpful. With Kathy Harrison, she spoke a lot of her interests, why she's interested in this committee, where her interests lie. She also spoke a lot about her experience. And then I think like experience, interest, and public engagement. Is there another domain that we usually ask her about?
I don't know how to answer that because I'm new to this committee, so I don't know how do we usually.
Omar and JP, you guys have the most
experience,
history.
Interest, and public engagement. You said.
Yeah.
I mean, those feel like good areas to touch on. So, do we want to try to formulate those questions?
Sure.
And see how they feel.
Okay. I'll make a Zoom page. I'll do a Google Doc page or something. Or Microsoft Word page, whatever. I'll share a document so we can look at it together. Okay, do you see a blank page?
None of the pages are showing up on my screen, so there's something that we're not doing here that gets me what you see.
Is other people seeing? Are other people seeing?
I see your blank. Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
JP, do you just have one full screen of faces in front of you? Is that what's going on?
I do. When I go to view, I can do speaker view or the gallery view.
So if you go to the upper left-hand corner, are you able to get out of full screen mode? If you hover over the upper left-hand corner, does it give you the option to minimize your screen a bit and exit full screen mode?
I can do that, sure. Yeah, I did.
And then that should allow you possibly to see the other screen or adjust that screen size.
Right, if it were there.
Okay, never mind. That was my quick.
Which would be great.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway.
So Lindsay has typed, why are you interested in serving on this committee or board? I think.
And whatever questions I come up with, I can contact them ahead of time. I'll send it to them. They can answer in writing, so we'll have it in writing, and then we could have follow-up questions, in our, because most of the time they don't even come, so that's another thing.
Right.
So we can at least get these in writing from everybody. And then,
And should I enter these into the minutes? Just
sure.
Okay.
Well, maybe once we decide, I don't need it.
Yeah.
But what did you say about public engagement? How would you characterize your engagement with the community, or how do you engage with the Easthampton community? What are ways in which you engage with the Easthampton community, including social media?
Yeah. What do you think about that one, JP, the wording?
Want to read it again?
What are the ways you engage with the Easthampton community, including social media?
I guess I'm having a hard time with the whole concept of certain questions and having a question format. Certainly, we can ask anything. So I suppose it's fine. I'm thinking more of having people finding out not just their interests, not just how they would engage, but I guess tell me more about why this committee, what to kind of drive it. Is there a particular perspective or agenda that you have for the committee? Maybe another way of wording that would be, what do you see as ways in which you'll be able to assist the committee and the community by being on this committee? And that might begin to be an open-ended question where someone can talk about their role on the Conservation Commission, their role on the Planning Board or the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I think it kind of it helps us to give us a perspective on, and I think how willing to listen to other people, how willing to engage the community in a professional manner, which I think really is, from my perspective, what I like to see is folks who on the boards who are knowledgeable about what they're getting into, knowledgeable about certain perspectives, but then be able to kind of expound on anything. For example, there could be a neighbor who just gets really angry that something happened next door to them and they couldn't control it. And then that person applies, gets appointed by the mayor, and then might take an angle on something that is really seems not balanced. They're willing to listen to other people's perspectives. If we can get at that kind of information, I think that helps us in evaluating how the various boards and committees are formed. Typically, for most positions, we're just thrilled to have folks.
I know, right? I know, and typically they don't come. So
spending a lot of time on a point that just doesn't. But it matters that often.
Right, but I do, our committee does reach out to everybody. So it'd be nice if I just had a set group questions that I reach out to everybody.
Yeah.
And then if they come to the meeting, then we can follow up on any of those questions. I'm just kind of putting bullets. I know you can't. Can you see it now, JP, or no? No.
I can see it, and I think they're great. Should we read it into the record?
Yeah. And Erica, I was just putting those hashtags underneath for our own purposes.
I think it's helpful for them also, just to help them, think about how to answer a bit. It's the first one, JP, is, and I'm not sure if the wording is, so the first question Lindsay wrote down is, why are you interested in serving on this committee or board? So, I mean, that gets to it, right? That gets to the second one. In what ways do you see being able to contribute to this committee? Do you see, in what ways do you see yourself being able to contribute to this committee? And then she's kind of put as a prompt, professional experience, different perspectives, just to give them a guidance. The third one is, what are ways you engage with the Easthampton community, including social media? And then just below that, social media, maybe we can get rid of including
we could get rid of
social
that.
media.
Yeah, we can get rid of
So
that. Yeah.
what are ways you engage with the Easthampton community? And then as sort of a little bit of a prompt is social media, community volunteerism, school involvement, etc. I mean, we could put attend meetings or, whatever, but that gives people an area to dive into their answer.
Right.
I don't know. I'm happy with those as I feel like they're broad enough they could pertain to any committee or board and be a starting off point for us.
I was thinking too about like the, issues that arrived in earlier meetings this year. It's like social media was a big one. So we'd still be able to ask about that. And this, accuracy of past professional experiences was one of the issues that arose. And so we'd be able to attend to that under question number 2. So I think these are broad enough that we could really ask anything we want, but it would give them like the buckets.
And I feel like those are 3 really important areas to hit, really.
I would tend to agree with that. Like I said, for each committee, I'd have to, in my mind, go through and start to think about, are we missing something? Is there something else? But they sound like good general areas that kind of cover a broad bit of ground that I would hope would allow for any follow-up question that would be relevant to the various position that the person is applying for.
And just to take into consideration what Owen shared with us and his perspective, so just looking back at number 2 of his suggestions for the process, the appointment process shall include questions and queries relevant to the committee position, the applicant's fitness and qualifications for the position, and any and all publicly relevant records of the applicant's engagement with the city and community, to include spoken written statements, including social media posts. I mean, I think we hit on all of that with these 3 questions. They don't discriminate. I mean, so I do think, we've taken those concerns into consideration here with these questions as well. So are we there? Are those the questions?
I would like to be able to see them.
We don't have to vote on it today or anything.
Yeah.
Let's we don't have, this is not a rush, we don't have a big deadline. So we can take this and think about it. And
so I guess my question to you, Lindsay, would then be in the rule change, are we including that these will be sent ahead, these will be sent with the materials to the applicant so that they can reply in writing, or they can reply in person verbally? I mean, 'cause I think if they don't show up, we'd like to have these answered.
in writing, right? One way or the other, they should be answered.
It's either or, right?
Right. And I think that's like, I think if a person who's getting appointed to a committee, doesn't write or come, then that's kind of a warning sign.
Yeah, if you just fail to answer questions, that's not a great start.
Great start to the process.
Not really a people person, sorry.
Yeah, and it would be so nice because, I mean, part of this is just also, there's part of it, is the consistency for them, but also part of it is for our own roadmap. Like anytime there's a new appointment committee, it's kind of like, okay, well, this is what this person did. So try to, I wasn't given a form letter or anything, so it'd be nice if we kind of made like a form email. So anyone moving through this committee has something has kind of a roadmap of, of what to do.
I would agree.
So I think we can like sit on it. We don't have to like feel forced to make any kind of decisions tonight. I think it was kind of a good push forward. Do you have anything to add, Omar? No, I don't want to interrupt Cindy.
I'm here again. No, I'm here again. No, I think this is a good progress. I think this question should be part of the interview from the committee. When the mayor send or contact the person. I think this question should be from
Coming
the
from us.
committee, to the person who is being appointed from the mayor. I think it's a great start, and I like it.
Great. So I'll draft a letter, and I'd love for the letter to come from, all of us. So like whoever's on the committee, on the appointment committee, all three of our names will be on it. And then it's just kind of that way too. Once we get the new names, it's easier for us too. It's like, we'll email off our form email,
Yep. Can I also just make the point? I do agree with, and I just want to get feedback on Owen's fourth recommendation was
I did like that.
Applicants affirmed by the city council shall be required to sign a code of conduct established by the city council. And what are your thoughts on that, including that in this rule?
I like it.
JP, do you have any thoughts on having the volunteers sign a code of conduct? Just another layer. I see it as another layer of accountability.
I guess I'd have to think about that. I would think that the city would have certain codes of conduct in general that they would have someone sign, whether they're an employee or whether they are an appointed individual. So I guess I'm thinking that there might be something out there already that we would be duplicating.
Emily, is there?
Probably not for appointees, but for employees, I would think maybe that would be something we could transfer over.
Yeah. So for anybody who's just like a committee member, all we require from them is the conflict of interest. If you're an employee, there's much more in depth.
But do you have a code of conduct that would, or is it too?
For the employees, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can send that. Maybe we can just edit it. Maybe if it's too intense, we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to pull it up for you.
All right, so maybe we can take a look at that next time.
So I heard Emily say that the code of conduct is, the
conflict of interest.
I didn't hear conflict of interest, but I didn't hear open meeting law as something that is shared and they sign off on. I would presume that everyone would have to take the course for open meeting law since they're about to become members in boards and committees.
That's a good question. Of course. These are all great things because I've talked to people, I've been talking to people about their experience on committees, and it's been a range of answers. Like even Erica, you said you just were all of a sudden on the committee. You didn't get a code, yeah,
it was several years ago, but yeah, exactly.
Still, yeah. So I think if we can create a process, then it will outlive us and, the other, you don't want to just kind of move to whim of whoever's doing it next kind of thing. Open meeting law, I think that's good. And then a code of conduct. So we can look at different codes of conduct. I don't think it should be, just something short.
Yeah. And I want to say too, I don't want people to feel like this is cumbersome, but I do feel like this is a great step in really helping people, getting involved with civic engagement and understanding, how these meetings are run. I know people can start to feel like these are a lot of layers and they're cumbersome, but it's a learning process for all of us. And actually, JP, I really appreciate that you brought up open meeting law. I wasn't even thinking about that, but I think that's actually a really important point. So I definitely would support including that in this process.
Me too. And I also think, everything's with the tone that we do it. I agree with you. We don't want it to be, it's not that it's cumbersome. It's more like we're helping to educate people and give them clarity when they're going through a process. Because I've talked to a lot of appointees that felt kind of rather confused the whole time as to what was going on. And they didn't really understand what was happening. All of a sudden they were just on a committee. And so it just helps.
I think too, even recently, I know there was some confusion about a delay in response time on certain issues, and that was due to open meeting law. So the more people we have engaged who understand the process of how everything works, I think that can just bring about maybe some more easier discussions, more productive discussions. It can just help. It can only help communication within the community, is what I'm saying. If more people understand these processes and what we can talk about and when, it could help overall.
Yeah, and in terms of Owen's first point, I still would not say that people have to do a resume. Just I just talked to a senior today who's on one of our committees, and she said, I haven't even made a resume in, I don't even remember how, like 20 years, you know? So, but it could be just a list of their, you know, doesn't have to be in a resume style.
Well, yeah. And I think we've discussed this before, and Owen mentions it as well. I think, you know, we've come to this conclusion. If you don't have a resume, if you just reach out and say, I don't have a resume, but, you know, here's my experience, like in a sentence or two, I think I fully support that alternative for people. But it is it is good to understand what they're bringing to the table, right? And like JP said, you get at what is their, you know, agenda or motive for joining. You know, do they have an agenda, or what are their motivation for joining the
it could be like upload a resume, or send in a resume, or a list of relevant experience. Yeah, just like that, so it doesn't feel like a barrier.
Yeah, actually I really like that language, list of relevant experience. If you don't have a resume, a list of relevant experience, that feels
not
open enough.
I mean, is there an application that someone has to, I mean, I would presume that there would be an application that would go to the mayor and then be shared with us, and it would kind of cover those things, but you'll find out more
no,
on
you're
Tuesday.
right, it does. It was actually in our last packet, JP, from, you know,
so if somebody doesn't have a resume and they filled out the application, great.
But the application actually doesn't have a list of relevant experience. It's just like, why are we doing an application if we're not
what's on there?
Well, it was in our last agenda packet. It's basically the board they want to be appointed for. How did they learn about it? Why are they interested in it? Are you aware of the time commitment? Have you served on a board in the past? So, and then it says, please attach a letter. Please attach a letter stating your reasons and/or qualifications for seeking an appointment. Include resume if appropriate. So
that kind of is everything I think we need.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so we got them. She forwarded them from last time. They were in our packet. Yeah.
We're good.
So we're good. Yeah. And so when you go to, I emailed it to you. We don't have to go through them together, but you can look at it. Oh, actually, when you see what Owen shared, he shared a model of excellence. Let me change screens. So new share.
So Lindsay, you just said you emailed this to us both?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want me to include those questions we just formulated into the minutes? Okay.
Yeah, please. There's a really nice, this is one for people serving on city councils, boards, and commissions from the city of Sunnyvale. So take a look at it. I think it's pretty nice and general that Owen shared with us. It's called the Model of Excellence Member Statement. And so I would just say our homework between this meeting and next meeting is like kind of take a look at that. Emily will send us the code of conduct that our city has. And then you'll see all the documents I shared with you, the letters that the city shares, including like a flow chart. And when I meet with them, one of the things we were going to talk about is making an additional an online application. So people could still do it, print it out and do it this way, but people would additionally have the option of just filling things out online and pressing submit, which is for some people easier. They don't have to find a printer or mail something, you know. So just making it more accessible for different types of engagement. So, and I'll ask your question specifically, JP, about how she vets for different committees, just so we understand. Yeah, I think we did well tonight. What do you guys think?
Is that it for our agenda? I was just clicking back over to see if we hit on everything. Yeah. And just, this is continuing business, correct?
This is continuing business,
okay.
Yeah.
So no new business for tonight then. Yep. Great. Well, Madam Chair, will you entertain
Before that, if I may, just one other thought. I know that often redacted from the applications is a phone number. I think all members of the committee should have access to the number. We may not be able to email it or put it out, but would it be appropriate to ask the mayor if any member of the appointments committee who so chose, or any counselor, in fact, who had questions about or would like to speak with the individual, could we call in and get the numbers so that we could do so before the meeting?
Yeah, and maybe our city count, maybe we can, I'll ask her if we can get the unredacted just for our committee members.
Right.
You know, yeah, I agree. Because again, the small town, I was able to call these people because they were already in my phone. You know what I mean? So
that's nice, but I'm sure there'll be others.
I know. And Austin's already on a board, so his information was already in the spreadsheet. Jackie was in this. Kathy Harrison. I mean, I don't know her. She had just reached out to me because she knows someone who knows me, to ask me how to volunteer for a committee. So I just told her where to look. So I was very pleased to see her name come through, that she had followed up and found something she wanted to serve on. Yeah, and I'm excited for when we get a new website, because I don't think it's like the easiest to kind of track down right now either. And Erica, can you kind of start talking with Easthampton Media about what we had talked about too, about making little.
Oh yes, we did discuss that, and they're looking into for the podcasting. Is that what you're? Wait, which one?
No, the little promos about little, just like 1 minute or 1.5 minutes about each.
We are good to go whenever. When I say we, I've talked with Jen Ramsey, the executive director, and the president of the board of the directors. We discussed we have the ability to do, essentially, I think we could look at it as a PSA, but we could do little small blurbs of each of the committees and just highlight them and push them out through social media, broadcast them on the channels. So whenever we as a committee are ready to start inviting other committees for a brief chat, essentially we can use a recorded Zoom and edit that, or, work with the format. But that's at our leisure, basically. They will coach us.
Okay, cool.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe once we get through this rule change process, we can move on to that as our next area of business.
Can I ask a question,
Sure.
JP? In terms of if we were going to embark on that as a committee, does that need to go, we need to get it on our agenda, or how does that, to making videos, is that really an agenda item, or is that just something we're volunteering doing? Omar, JP, I'm too new to know that.
I guess I would err on the side of caution, and if it's something we're discussing, put it on an agenda. Just in case there are others in the public who may have good suggestions or reasons that they'd like to contribute to. So that would be my recommendation. Omar, your thoughts?
I do agree. I think should be in the agenda.
Yeah,
actually, I mean, as I'm thinking of it, I think it could be a really a productive meeting. We could actually get people to show up if they're interested in a particular board or committee to ask further questions, So maybe what we do is look at inviting one or two.
We should probably stop talking. I guess if we're going to get on.
Yeah, we can't talk about it now then, but it should be on the agenda.
Talk about it right now, but it is kind of part of the process, but it's the beginning part of the process. So it's a separate part of the process, but
exactly.
So cool. So I'll talk to Peg about that, and cool. I think this is a fun project, and I think if we can really put something really educational for the public and something that invites more participation in the community, and I think we'll leave a good, legacy behind in this committee for others.
It'll put this rule change to work too.
Yeah.
So, great. Will you entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor? JP, do I have to do this? Erica?
Aye.
And me, aye. So we're adjourned. Thank you. And thank you, Emily, so much for coming.
Thank you, Emily, for staying with us.
Thank you for staying with us. And Omar, your picture is very nice.
Have a great night.
Have a great night. Goodbye.
Bye-bye now.